Some of the most important investments I ever made didn't show up on spreadsheets. They didn't yield quarterly reports, and they didn't wear suits or walk into boardrooms. Sometimes they walked barefoot across wet sand. Sometimes they showed up with nothing but a folded letter and a face full of questions. In this story, I'm going to tell you about a young man who came looking for direction, a father I once failed to listen to, and the storm that showed me the real difference between value and noise. So pour your coffee, pull up a chair, and let the wind speak between the words. Because this one isn't just about business. It's about the kind of legacy we leave when the tide washes everything else away. It's about why misery isolates, why vision attracts, and why your emotional clarity might just be the most valuable asset you'll ever carry. People don't invest in misery, not in the market, not in people. I was sitting on the porch this morning, coffee in one hand, the ocean rumbling in the distance. The waves were angry today, not violent, just persistent. They kept coming, relentless, kind of like life. The fire crackled inside the little stove I built with my own hands after retiring here. The smell of damp driftwood, sea salt, and black coffee hung in the air like some sacred incense. And from somewhere up the hill, a lone gull cried out. Just once. Sharp, clear, then silence. I don't record these reflections because I have answers. I record them because I've lived long enough to know the right questions are more valuable than any quick-fix solution. This morning I came across a poem again. One I hadn't read in years. Solitude by Ella Wheeler Wilcox. Laugh, and the world laughs with you. Weep, and you weep alone. Those lines stopped me. I just sat there staring at the horizon. And I realized that's not just a poem. It's a market principle. People rally to strength. They gravitate toward clarity, toward vision. But when all you offer them is fear, blame, noise, they pull away. They protect themselves, emotionally and financially. That's not cruel. That's just human nature. Therefore, I've learned, through bull markets and bloody crashes, that what you broadcast determines what you attract, not just with money, with everything. Years ago, I partnered with a guy named Theo. Brilliant mind. Probably smarter than me, if we're being honest. But Theo, he fed on negativity. Bad headlines lit him up. He could spot a problem in a room full of miracles. He thought the market owed him respect. The world owed him fairness. His family owed him gratitude. No one ever paid. Eventually, no one returned his calls either. I remember the day our fund pulled out. I told him something I've only ever said once in my life. You're not managing capital anymore, Theo. You're managing resentment. He didn't hear me. Back then, I thought that moment was about a business deal gone sour. But this morning, watching the rain start to creep across the sand, I realized it was about something else entirely. I've seen empires built on quiet optimism. I've seen fortunes lost on noisy despair. So let me ask you something. What are you broadcasting right now? In your relationships, your team, your home, your investments? Because here's what no one tells you. If all you share with the world is your anger, your fatigue, your disappointment, you're building a castle on quicksand. And when the tide comes in, and it will, no one's coming to save you. Now I know what you're thinking. But isn't that fake? Pretending everything's okay when it's not? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying this. Gratitude is not denial. It's discipline. And discipline is the foundation of wealth, emotional, relational, and financial. I once told a young man this exact thing during a private mentorship call. He'd just lost a six-figure investment in a startup that folded. He was bitter, angry, pointing fingers. You know what I told him? No investor worth their salt buys into bitterness. Show me someone who can lose well, and I'll show you someone who will win even bigger. I could hear him writing it down. That gave me hope. You see, I didn't come here, to this remote edge of the world, to escape the markets. I came here because I finally understood what the real market was. It's not NASDAQ. It's not S&P. It's you. It's the marketplace of your spirit. Every thought is a currency. Every word is a trade. Every attitude is an index people read before deciding if they want to invest their energy in you. This isn't theory. This is reality. I've lived it. On the trading floor, in boardrooms, in a quiet kitchen with a woman I once loved who eventually stopped listening. Because here's the truth. People don't stay where it's always raining. Not in marriage, not in business, not in friendship. But here's the twist no one prepares you for. Sometimes, the storm isn't out there. It's you. And if you don't learn to light a fire in the middle of it, you'll drown in your own weather system. That's what I came here to tell you today. That, and something else. Something that happened this morning. When I stood up to refill my coffee, I noticed something in the sand, just past the porch. Bare footprints. I haven't had a visitor in weeks, not since the last storm. But someone came. Or maybe someone's coming. The footprints were small, not childlike, but young. Bare, wet, hesitant. They didn't march up with confidence. They meandered, paused, turned back, then stepped forward again. That hesitation said a lot. Whoever it was had stood right at the edge of my porch, not on it, not bold enough to knock, just close enough to listen. It was early afternoon when I spotted him again. He'd circled around, clearly trying not to be seen, which never works around here. I've been watching tides and shadows for longer than most people have been alive. He looked to be in his early 20s, worn hoodie, cheap shoes, backpack slung low. The kind of kid who's either running from something or hoping to find something that doesn't exist. I didn't say a word, just poured 2 mugs of coffee and sat back down on the porch. Left one on the railing. Within a few minutes, he was standing 5 feet away. Hands in pockets, eyes darting, hair soaked from the mist. Are you the guy? He asked. I didn't answer immediately. Not because I was trying to be mysterious, but because I was watching how uncomfortable the silence made him. It told me more than anything he could have said. I'm not a guy, I said finally. But I am this guy. He half smiled, unsure if that was a joke or a rejection. You used to run a hedge fund, right? I read the notes. The letters. My dad printed some out years ago. Said your portfolio theory saved him from losing everything in 2008. Now that surprised me. Not the compliment. I've heard variations of it before. But the vulnerability. The way he brought up his father without shame. In a world full of peacocks and performative wisdom, it stood out. What's your name? I asked. Eli. All right, Eli, I said, gesturing to the empty chair. Tell me why you walked half a mile in this mess just to talk to a ghost. He sat down like he hadn't been offered a seat in weeks. Maybe he hadn't. People can be surrounded by noise and still starved for conversation. I dropped out, he said. College. Last month. Good for you. He blinked. You think so? No. But I like people who can make hard decisions, even if they're the wrong ones. At least it means you're not living someone else's life. He laughed a little, nervously. It didn't feel brave. It felt like quitting. Sometimes quitting is the smartest thing you'll ever do, I said. The question is, what did you quit for? He hesitated. Then, almost inaudibly, I don't know. And there it was, the heartbeat of the whole thing. Not college, not career paths, not investment tips, but the big void most people never admit. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know who I am. I don't know where to go next. I saw myself in him, not the polished version, the version people talk about in conferences, but the real one. The kid who once sat in an airport for 6 hours with a return ticket in one hand and a torn-up business plan in the other, trying to figure out if courage was the same thing as recklessness. Eli, I said, what do you want to build? He looked confused. A business? No, I said. What do you want to build? In here. I tapped my chest. Silence. Just the sound of waves eating the sand and the wind pushing against the windows. I don't know, he repeated. But this time it wasn't fear. It was honesty. You know, I said, leaning back, people think investing is about betting on something that'll grow. But the best investors I ever knew, they bet on who they wanted to become. They treated every decision like a brick in a cathedral, even when it looked like just a pile of mud. He stared at the horizon. I've been trying to figure it out, he said. But everyone's angry. My friends, my professors, my parents, even online. It's just outrage all the time. It's like no one believes in anything. I nodded. Because belief is expensive. You have to invest hope, time, sincerity. People would rather buy cheap opinions than risk real loss. He looked down at the coffee in his hands. It was cold now. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why did you stop? Managing money? He nodded. I thought about it. About the boardrooms, the 3 a.m. market panics, the victories that felt empty, the losses that felt like betrayal. I stopped, I said slowly, because I was winning the wrong game. What do you mean? Money's only impressive when you know what to do with silence, with doubt, with being alone. Otherwise, it's just another addiction. Eli went quiet again, and I didn't fill the silence. That's something you learn with age. The wisdom is usually hiding inside the pause. Then he said, "So, what now?" I smiled. That question wasn't for me. That was the moment I knew. He wasn't looking for a guru. He was looking for a mirror, which meant I had to be careful what I reflected back. That night, the wind came in stronger. You learn to listen to storms before they arrive. They don't knock, they whisper. Eli had fallen asleep on the old leather chair near the stove, a dog-eared notebook half open on his lap, covered in half-thoughts and business names that probably won't survive the week. I stood outside, watching the surf boil under a darkening sky. The kind of night that doesn't promise anything except honesty. It had been years since anyone stayed overnight here, and even longer since someone asked me for advice without pretending they already knew what they were doing. He woke early. "Did you always know?" he asked, walking out barefoot, coffee in hand. "No," I said, "but I got good at pretending I did, until the pretending nearly cost me everything." He nodded, but I could tell something had shifted, something unspoken. "I found something last night," he said, "in your bookshelf." I turned to him slowly. He pulled out a sheet of paper, folded 4 times, yellowed at the edges. He opened it carefully, almost reverently. It was a letter, from his father, typed, signed, stamped. I knew it instantly. It wasn't just any letter. It was that letter, the one I'd buried in a box years ago. A warning, a confession, and a curse, all in one. "I didn't know you kept that," I said, voice quiet. "My dad died 3 years ago," Eli said. "Pancreatic cancer. He never told me what happened between you two. Just that you were the reason he almost left the industry, and also the reason he didn't." I exhaled slowly, trying to choose my words with precision. "He was brilliant," I said. "Too brilliant. He saw what no one else saw, and he was right about the numbers, but wrong about the people." Eli stared at me, eyes wide. "You mean the market crash?" I nodded. "He predicted it months before it hit, and I ignored him." "Why?" "Because he delivered truth like a hammer. Not everyone wants to be saved by a man who swings like that." We stood there for a long moment. Eli looked out at the sea. "He used to say the waves reminded him of you. Beautiful, but unpredictable. Always pulling something back." I wasn't sure if it was meant as an insult or a compliment. Probably both. That's how truth usually comes, double-edged. "He always said he regretted writing that letter," Eli added, "but he never regretted mailing it." I nodded again. He shouldn't have. It was the only time someone told me what I needed to hear, and I hated him for it. But it saved me. Eli reached into his bag and pulled out a folder. I have something I want to build, he said. Not a unicorn startup, nothing shiny, just something real, local, profitable, human. I know it's not your level, but I raised my hand to stop him. Don't pitch me, I said, not yet. He looked down, embarrassed. But tell me one thing, I added. Why are you really here? And that's when it happened. The pause, the shift. The storm behind his eyes broke open. Because I'm afraid I'll become him, Eli said. I felt the weight in that sentence. The truth wasn't about funding, or mentorship, or business strategy. It was about inheritance, emotional inheritance. The kind that doesn't show up in estate plans, but lives in every choice we make. Every voice we silence, every fight we walk away from. He didn't want capital. He wanted a different legacy, a new name for the storm inside him. And for the first time in years, I felt that old flicker, the one I thought I'd buried in a vault of memory and market data. Not ambition, purpose. All right, I said. Let's build something, not just for the world, for you. He looked up, surprised. But here's the catch, I added. It won't be easy, and it won't be pretty. We'll dig through a lot of things, not just spreadsheets. I'm ready. No, I said, smiling. You're not. But you will be. The wind picked up. Rain started falling sideways, soft at first, then harder. We both stepped inside. That night, we stayed up drawing models, not for a business, but for a life. One with structure, with room for risk, but also for silence. A life that doesn't just chase wins, but creates value. The tide was rising, and for the first time in a long while, I wasn't just watching from the shore. The storm came in like a question you've been avoiding. By midnight, the ocean roared so loud we had to raise our voices to hear each other. The shutters clattered, the stove hissed. But inside, the old house stood still, like it had seen worse and decided not to care. Eli had fallen asleep again, but not out of exhaustion, out of peace. I stayed up thinking about the markets, about the men I'd known, about the cost of becoming someone you respect. I stood at the window watching the surf eat the last traces of dry sand. Somewhere out there, the tide was rising over my own footprints, the ones I used to think mattered more than they did. That's when I saw him again. Not Eli. Me. The younger version, sharp, ruthless, praised and feared. A man who had conquered numbers but had no idea what to do with silence. And then I saw something else. I saw that I hadn't retired because I was tired. I had retired because I was ashamed. Ashamed of the people I stepped over, the words I never said, the days I spent calculating everything, except the damage I left behind. And maybe that's what haunted me about Eli, not his uncertainty, but his honesty, something I had buried so deep I forgot it existed. At dawn, the storm broke. Waves calmed. Light returned, though still pale and hesitant. Eli sat at the table, sketching again. Quiet, focused. Got a call last night, he said, not looking up. I waited. Startup I interviewed for last fall, VC-backed, huge runway. They're offering me equity, leadership track. Said I could be part of the next wave. And? He looked up. I don't want it, he said. I didn't smile. I didn't congratulate him. Because that decision, that clarity, that was the beginning of something real. You sure? No, he said. But I'm sure I'd regret it. He folded the sketch, slid it across the table. It was rough, imperfect, but full of conviction. A small consulting firm, but focused on people, not just problems. Helping small businesses build strategy that honored who they were, not just what they sold. I ran my fingers across the paper. You'll need capital, I said. I don't want yours, he replied. Not unless you believe in the why, not just the numbers. I leaned back. For the first time, someone wasn't asking me for a check. They were asking me for faith. I do believe, I said quietly. But on one condition. What? That you never forget what you just said. He nodded. Because here's the thing, Eli, I continued. The world will offer you applause for pretending, and punishment for telling the truth. But if you stay honest about your fears, your goals, your limits, you'll build something no market crash can touch. He exhaled, like he'd been holding that breath for a decade. I stood and walked outside. The storm had scrubbed the sky clean. The sand was soft, reset. I looked down. 2 sets of footprints, mine and his, side by side, heading in the same direction. But I knew, sooner or later, the tide would rise again. It always does. And when it does, all that remains is the impression you leave behind. That's the part no one teaches you. Not on Wall Street, not in school, not even in most homes. But maybe, just maybe, they'll learn it here. And so, if you remember nothing else from this story, remember this. People don't invest in misery, not in the market, not in business, not in people. They invest in vision, in courage, in the rare kind of clarity that comes from silence and storms. If you made it this far, thank you. Time's the most valuable thing we've got, and if you chose to spend some of yours here with me, listening, thinking, that means something. I don't do this for views. I don't care about algorithms. I do it because every now and then, someone out there's carrying something heavy. And maybe something I said helped lighten the load, even just a little. So wherever you are, keep walking. Keep choosing clarity over noise. And when the tide rises again, because it always does, stand firm. I'll be here. Same ocean, same porch. Until next time.